things were kind of born on my end out of a desire to at least see if there's a different way of doing things and offering both the public and artists, a different option with a label.
Ghost Cult Magazine is honored to welcome in Mickey Darius of Broken Clover Records. How are you doing today?
Doing so well, Keith. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. You can hear the 101 highway right outside my window. Fantastic. Two Bay Area guys, at least a longtime Bay Area resident in Mickey and a recent one in myself. First and foremost, super excited about this new collaboration and announcement that we got about the label. You guys are doing phenomenal things for underground artists. And I just would love to just have you just open up by talking about the new arrangement and just what kind of the goals of the label.
Yeah, so when the label started back in 2018, or technically in 2018, but the first release was 2019, it was really born out of not necessarily thinking that other people were doing things wrong, but just seeing things that I'm like, oh, I would love it if someone did this, or I think it'd be cool if someone did this. And really just kind of trying to address things that I am hesitant to use the word better or worse, any sort of hierarchy like that. In the past, I've kind of said, used language like that. And in looking back, I'm a little bit hesitant to say that, I don't think I'm necessarily doing anything better, but I'm at least offering different options to artists and different options to fans. And that's something that I wanted to do is very intentional. It felt like a lot of what the industry was offering was just, this is how it's done. This is the one channel. If you want to do this, you do it these ways, and that was it. And so I at least wanted to give it a shot at doing it in a way that felt good to me and felt like going down the steps that for the most part I can get to the end of each release and be like, cool, we did this, pretty much soup to nuts in a way that I feel, good about. And, in almost each instance from beginning to end in a way that I feel good about. Every now and then you kind of have to make compromises on something, whether it's, rushing packaging or, whatever it is. But, to answer your question, I would say that things were kind of born on my end out of a desire to at least see if there's a different way of doing things and offering both the public and artists, a different option with a label.
Amazing. And all those things are relevant to my personal interest. But the one eye-catching 800-pound gorilla in the room is this royalty split, we'll call it, or this royalty exchange, if you will. And I wanted you to talk a little bit more about that as well, because I think it's really unique, and I think it could shatter the whole paradigm of the industry in a positive way for a change.
Yeah, so specifically to that point, it has always been stunning is almost even too light of a word, but shocking, any of these words you want to use, that artists kind of seem to be the last to get paid. And everything starts with them. It might be vision from a label or, being pushed by a manager or something like that. But really, the album doesn't get done without an artist. Just, all these other things can kind of be circumvented. And so it's always seemed crazy to me that artists are the last to get paid. So what I've been doing pretty much across the board, there have been a few instances where just that particular deal, required some other, a different approach. But for the most part, I'd say, in almost all examples, we advance monies to the artists as though all copies of the record had sold at retail. If we know that, we're selling a chunk of the records to a distributor or, something like that, we factor all that in, but basically advancing the money to the artist as though all the records have sold, not waiting like, oh, cool, this month you sold 10. So you get, these little bits and pieces. That is something that has felt really good, kind of going back to what I said earlier, not saying that's necessarily better, worse, right, wrong, whatever. But it's definitely something that I feel good about, how we operate the label. That said, as we've gotten a lot of accolades for that, and, obviously a lot of artists are interested in a model like that, I've also found that it's not super sustainable, at least for us. There's not a whole lot more runway in this, just because record sales for a label like Broken Clover Records that puts out a lot of oddball music, and it's not necessarily a metal label or a country label or a jazz label or anything. So it's hard to kind of keep these fans, stay front of mind for fans and keep record sales going. There's not been a lot of, you look at other labels that maybe fit a niche a little bit better, they get a lot more repeat customers, whereas we're not really getting that. And therefore it's making the model of advancing artists a little bit unsustainable, because up to now it's really been coming just out of my pocket. Going into the fact that we're on our 20th release, that doesn't necessarily create a situation that can keep, that is sustainable.
Thank you so much for that in-depth answer. I'm really excited about that, and I get the challenges that exist. And it's not for you or I to solve this. I hear from a lot of indie artists of cross genres and even podcasters. We also have a podcast. I hear, oh, I hate streaming. And I don't think it's like being mad at technology is like being mad at water for being wet. Streaming's not the problem. The problem is the brutal corporations that own the streaming services and the deals that were made where artists never had a say in the first place. So I think like Spotify is a good awareness engine. They just don't pay. I think Bandcamp, which you don't mind using, you're on, and we're going to link everything in the description. Bandcamp at least tries to pay a fair share to the artist, but they could also do better, although they've done amazing things during the pandemic times. So yeah, like I like to think that I don't think you're positioned against streaming. You're pro artist, right? That's fair to say.
Pro artist, and actually I'm very pro streaming. I love streaming. I use streaming platforms pretty regularly. I use it as discovery. If I find something I like, I go buy it. I use it for the ways that I use it. And again, in a way that I feel good about. I use it in a way that I think actually lends itself to the whole ecosystem. I think there's definitely a place for streaming. Where my huge, it makes my blood boil is honestly not even with the companies themselves, like Spotify. Spotify's doing what we all expected Spotify to do. They're these big companies, they're predatorial things. That's how they get bigger. And even if they weren't when they started, I don't know, I've kind of built it into my expectation that to not, expect really any great things from these companies. They're doing what they do. What I do have a huge issue with is most humans on the consumer level, their expectation, this sense of entitlement of everything free. And okay, that's one thing, but then free and instant. Okay, that's two things. It would be one thing if it's just free, but you have to wait. Or one thing if it's instant, but you have to pay for it. And they want it across all platforms. Like I want it free, instant, and I want to have it in any possible way. If I'm in my friend's hot tub using my uncle's cell phone, I still want to be able to stream it onto my Bluetooth speaker. Like, fuck that. Like they're the people that are bitching about, Spotify doesn't give money to artists, but I still want it for free. So to me, the issue is not even so much with the streaming companies. I mean, I don't want to excuse them. They certainly play a part, but they're just doing what we've asked them to do. They wouldn't be doing it if there wasn't a consumer base that was demanding that. I don't mean to go into get on my soapbox about that. That's certainly something that I feel really strongly about. And so for us, specifically about streaming, we weren't putting anything on the streaming services until a year after the release to really just give the release its breathing room, let it flap its wings, do its thing, give it a chance to fail or succeed, whatever it's going to do. And then a year down the road, and give also the people that bought it, give them that enjoyment of oh my God, have you heard this? No. And right now, these days, people say, oh, I haven't heard it. I'm just going to go check it out online. We don't have to engage about it. There's nothing that gets shared. But for the way that we've been doing it, it kind of requires that, the person who has the record or the download or anything, for them to kind of pass it along, or at the very least for the person who maybe does stream it to do it with a little bit more consideration, since Bandcamp doesn't let you go from song to song. So you have to consciously, okay, cool, I'm gonna stream this next song. So we certainly we keep the kind of the process democratized to anybody. If you have an internet connection, you can access the music. We're not keeping it from anybody, but we have now shifted from the year. We then moved it to 9 months, and I'm moving now to 6 months to putting things on the streams. Really just, for a few reasons, actually. One, for the fans who do buy it, give them their kind of their day in the sun to feel like they didn't buy it and they're suckers for it because everyone else is just getting it for free. They actually get something for that on top of just getting the music. And it honestly gives us a chance to revisit these records 6 months after the road, or 6 months down the road. We can be like, hey, in case you haven't heard it or bought it or any of this, now we get to talk about it again. So I think that there is absolutely a place for streaming, even if the model itself doesn't change and these blood-sucking companies continue to just be exactly that, it doesn't mean that we're better than that. I don't expect better from them, but I do expect better from our fans and, you know, kind of quote unquote, like our people.
Right on. We're here for soapboxes and amplifying anybody on their soapbox with a righteous message. And also, nobody has FOMO worse than a music fan who thinks they missed out on something somebody else has. Nobody. So yeah, I was going to say, I think also on top of that issue, you have really built up a nice collection of artists. They're very eclectic. Like you said, not necessarily one thing or the other, but just kind of a broad spectrum. How do you select an artist you want to work with at the label, or how does someone pitch you to join the label?
Yeah, no, it's that is a thing. And it almost seems like every release has been a little bit different. Some have been completely unsolicited, and it's just been me reaching out and really having no right to reach out. You know, someone that's either kind of out of my kind of quote unquote, you know, out of my league, or just someone that's like so far, I don't know. There's been a lot of just say, like, you have no idea who I am and no reason to really know who I am, but I found you and I think you're cool. Let's work on something. An example of that is Fulu Kolectiv. They're based in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and they have a sister band called Fulu Muziki, which translates to like trash music, and it's instruments made from trash. And I found this video online of these people performing this amazing music. It wasn't like, it was like, oh, you know, here's a little novelty or something. It was, you know, really sincerely engaging music and these amazing costumes. And just immediately upon seeing it was like, what is this? Like, something is happening here, and I want more. I want to know more. I want to share this. So I found them on Facebook, sent them a message, and it was just like, hey, like, I'm on the other side of the world and I run this dinky little label, but what you guys are doing really speaks to me. And I think, you know, I hope that what I'm doing might speak to you guys. And if so, you know, let's bridge this geographic gap and kind of make some shit happen. But I've also had instances, an example, another recent group or another recent release, a band from Switzerland that, you know, they'd kind of been, they were fans of some of the bands that we've worked with. And I got this, you know, an inquiry, totally unexpected by me, just saying, hey, like, we're fans of these bands, and, you know, here's our music. And, you know, so again, something across the world that wasn't at all on my radar this time, that just because, you know, I like to think that because of some of the decisions that I'm making, again, right or wrong, but at least, you know, they feel like they are based on an authentic desire to, you know, do good within our industry. I think that stuff is kind of radiating out, and the way that we're doing things is kind of hitting fans, and the kind of artists that we're working with are hitting fans. And you know, the hope is that, you know, these things are kind of radiating outwards and making what we do a desirable home for people that have something cool to say.
Nice. I love to hear it. I know you mentioned earlier that you use streaming. I see a record collection and some shelves behind you. How much music do you consume in a day, and how do you know, what's the first thing you go to hear music in a day?
Man, there's days where literally as soon as my eyes open, I kind of have a song in my head, or maybe I'm thinking about my partner and kind of want to send like a sweet song to her or something. But there's days where immediately upon waking up and my brain starting to function, there's some music, and not just kind of like some melody or something, but like a specific song or something. And it's just music's on from the minute I'm up to the minute I'm asleep. There's other days where consciously I'm like, I don't want to hear anything today. Like, I'll put something on that maybe actually I normally like, and I'm like, nope, nothing. Today is just, I can't deal with it. And then there's other days where just kind of accidentally, like, I'm like, oh my God, like, this is weird. Like, what? I feel like I like went outside without pants on. I just realized I spent the whole day without listening to any music. That said, living in San Francisco, as you know, you can relate, there's music everywhere. So I also don't feel like I ever really go a full day without listening to music. I love hearing people. I live right between Oak and Fell, so there's constantly cars going by. I'm constantly hearing people's stereos going. The neighbors around me, they're pretty, they seem to be avid music fans. So one of the things I love about this city, and really big cities in general, is even if you're not consciously or intentionally listening to music, there is this kind of soundtrack that's happening around you, whether you know it or not. And it's super diverse, but also really reflects, is such an accurate representation of the city that you're in. It's kind of like graffiti, but like an audio version of, where like you really get to kind of see like the message that's happening in the city right then.
One of the things I love about living here, absolutely. I didn't want to lose the opportunity to shout out Dave from Us Them Group, who's also a part of this new venture. I imagine for his expertise in music marketing and PR. Anything you want to share about that relationship and how that came to be? Do you know Dave for a long time? He's on our side. He's amazing to work with.
Yeah, I've been really, really pleased. It definitely is a new relationship. So I've been running the label now it's been 4 years and change. I've really, just over the last couple of years, with just struggling with COVID challenges and just my own personal, just navigating the crazy fucking uncertain world that we've been in these last couple of years, there have been moments of like, what am I doing with the label? Are we going to keep this going? Are we not? Sales aren't necessarily where we want them to be. But it's something that I am incredibly passionate about and means a great deal to me. And I'd like to think that it means something to the artists I work with and some of the fans that we're starting to develop. So I've been, kind of looking at what we can do to not just keep things going, but actually like keep things going in a way that feels like we're actually growing it, not just keeping it along, like keeping it on life support, but actually like letting it thrive. And the one area that I really feel like, gun to my head, or I'm at the gates of heaven, or wherever the fuck I'm going to go at the end of all this, it's like, did you do a good job with the label? And I really feel like, at the bottom of my heart, I could say I did what I felt like was a good job. I executed what I wanted to do, and, whether or not it was the right thing to do, whatever, I feel pretty good about what we've done, what we've accomplished, and, kind of who we've touched. But the one area that I know has not been my strongest, and something that I used to really like and have come to abhor, is like the marketing side of it. I've had a few conversations about this. We've kind of relegated ourselves to this like social media promo world. Had I known, a decade ago or however long ago, that by being lazy and stopping making flyers as much and doing all these things and really relying heavily on these social tools would then one day cause me to look back and be like, oh, cool. How come no one's making flyers anymore? How come no one's doing this? How come oh shit, we did this to ourselves. So I've been really having a hard time with the marketing side, because I'm so sick of being on Facebook and Instagram and these other social media channels. Yet that's kind of what we've relegated ourselves to being our main, if not only, tool. Flyers get out, and sometimes dropping off flyers, you actually get a look of like, why are you dropping this off here? Like, we already posted online. So yeah, so after, really kind of struggling with my relationship with social media and how I choose to promote the label and how I just getting the word out, because it's something, you want to be excited about. Authenticity it's key in any part of this business, but particularly in the promo aspect of it. And it was starting to be less and less authentic for me because I was hating doing it. So finally I got to a point where it was kind of a put up or shut up. Like, how much do you really care about this label? Is it worth doing it? And if so, let's find the right publicist. Because I've tried to find publicists in the past, and they have either been scared off by the fact that our releases are not consistent, and so they want something that they can kind of count on, or they were scared off by the fact that we didn't use the streaming platforms because that was kind of a integral part of their outreach. There's been a few reasons, but with Dave, pretty immediately he got it. He was like, yeah, like, why would you just get a publicist for this one release? We should be talking about everything the label's doing. Each of these releases are amazing, but then in the context of the whole catalog, it gives each of them this enriched kind of thread, or this enriched fabric that they're now a part of. Not to take away from any of the individual releases, but then looking at them as this kind of like the sum of their parts, as this, we've got jazz records, we've got post-punk records, we've got queer country records, we've got techno records, we've got this whole thing that in of themselves, they're fantastic releases, but then seeing it kind of curated almost like a mixtape where it's like, oh, there's a flow, then all of a sudden it changes and this and that. I think we've got something exciting, but it took somebody like Dave to really wrap their head around it and figure out the right way to package it and not package what we're doing, but package it for journalists. So that was a very long-winded way of saying, I hated doing that job. I got to a point of hating doing that job, and I finally found someone who's fucking awesome at it and understands what I'm doing.
Right on. As we wrap this up, and I really appreciate your time today, it's been amazing for me. I hope it's amazing for all our viewers and you as well. What releases are coming up that you can promote, or are you ready to talk about, or at least hint at?
Yeah. So we just put out, just on August 12th, so just a few days ago, Drekig. We just released their record. It's a husband and wife duo from Portland, Oregon, Papi Fimbres and Shayna Lindbeck. It was something that I've never heard a record like this. It kind of drifts in between like electro and like dreamcore and psych, and it's in in German and Spanish and English. And as soon as you start to be able to put it like, oh, cool, I'm going to put it in this part of my collection, it drifts into, oh shit, no, it's got to go into this category. No, like it defies the labeling, which is something that I've always kind of strove for, that I've aimed for with the label. And in that, you know, the harder it is when the buyer at the record store is like, shit, which part of the record shop should we put it in? Then I know that we're doing a good job. Yeah. So with this Drekig record, that just came out last week, and is something that I've just been crazy excited about. And then we've got another record coming out in September from a band in Lausanne, Switzerland, that band Torpedo. They've got a record coming out called Orfeo Nebula, and that comes out September 16th, I believe. So that is really the one that we're now in the final push for, and really having Dave, you know, kind of do his thing. And the band's working on stuff. We've got a video in the works. So a few things kind of coming up with that. And then after that, there are a few things that have not been released or not been announced yet. I don't want to get ahead of myself. No, I think I can safely talk about one of them. Lori Goldston. She played cello on the Nirvana Unplugged record. She's done stuff with Earth. She has an amazing solo career. She's got a lot going on, more than I can off the top of my head kind of think of. So I'm not being intentionally dismissive of anything that she's doing, but there's just so much of it. But yeah, she's got something to me that we are working on trying to finalize and get out hopefully this year. So that's something that's really exciting to me. And again, it's completely different from anything else that we've put out, or will be completely different from anything else that we've put out. But I also think fits perfectly right in where it's landing. And yeah, it's something that I'm very excited about. We've also got a few things coming up after that I don't quite feel ready to talk about, but they all keep exactly within the Broken Clover tradition of, you know, moving genres around, and even within the genres that they find themselves, in my opinion, still pretty kind of cutting edge and hard to classify even within those genres.
Awesome. We'll be looking out for all of that. Lori is a legend, and I'm super interested in Drekig personally. That sounds amazing. I'm going to check it out right now after we get off this call. Mickey Darius of Broken Clover Records, thank you so much for everything you are doing for underground and indie musicians and artists. And I wish you the best of luck with this. Let's stay in touch. We live nearby.
Absolutely, Keith. No, man, I'm looking forward to it. I've really been excited about connecting with you on this, and now discovering that, yeah, you're just a hood away. Let's, we'll definitely be grabbing a cup of coffee or something.